What's up, guys? This is day 162, and it's like a week since this practice happened. So a little time travel action going on, but you know, time travel is no stranger to this channel. Um, we're still at day 160 when really it should be like day 1600, but it is what it is. Um, I was thinking about how I haven't been doing this video for so long, and I was thinking about what how would it have been if I actually did post a video every day. And I came to the conclusion that I would probably be way better at arm wrestling, and I would maybe have gotten more attention for the social media, but definitely not it wouldn't have made a difference materially because I wouldn't have made money. um I do think it would have definitely been more if I had actually done done it, for example, for more than a year straight. um it would have it would have been way more made my story way more interesting. But I also feel like at that point it would have been just so much of a time commitment that it would just become too big a part of my identity, and I almost would not want to be known as the guy who posts a workout arm wrestling workout video every day. If I were to be that hyper consistent, it could be a lot of other things honestly in my life. um but anyways, I was not gonna do the voiceover either, but actually, um, so what I used to do was I would just I wouldn't really care to put music or whatever because I edit everything cause I always had this I don't like watching videos and having to skip through useless talking and stuff. So I've always tried to trim the videos to be more watchable so you wouldn't have to skip it. But so doing that, I would listen to everything. So I would just so I would know because I think the only reason you usually you put music because you're oh, people are just talking and it's kind of invading their privacy or whatever. But I would listen to it anyways, and I'm just yeah, it's fine. So I would just post it. But I think recently I'm too tired to do that, and also putting music honestly is I have to download the file and drag it, which takes similar amount of time honestly. That's just me talking. But anyways, I mostly I guess think it's corny sometimes, but I think from the perspective of who the three people that are actually listening, it's maybe less so because you're just farther away from the source. So I can see I can see how it could be sort of entertaining. Um, and that's Miguel was yeah, do the voiceover, and it's okay. So I mean, so I'm trying. Um, so I'm pulling with Brayden here, and I'm complaining about how achy I'm feeling and stuff, which I did. But I was complaining all day about I just went on a run, and I'm so tired, and which I was. I mean, actually looking back now, I'm really glad that I did it because I think that was my coming out of complete degeneracy cleanse because I was really fucked up not I mean I was recovered in an hour, I would say it, but I had a runny nose for 2 days, and definitely the first 20 minutes afterwards, even though it's a very short run, just my like sort of try hard meter went from a zero for years to an 80, and I was just holy fuck. Um, but anyways, I actually I went on some runs this past week, and I'm feeling way better just walking around. I feel I can breathe, and it's awesome. Anyways, um, pulling with the Brayden, and then here he climbed up, like he re-gripped on me to like get higher on my hand on the strap, but I was telling him that in a way that made it worse for him to try to hook me. Is that's what Mindogus says, is because it creates a gap between your pinky and my wrist joint, so it's like you should actually try to grab a bit lower to control my pronator. Um, and then he tries to top roll me, and I don't know if it's, I think maybe the next one, but I kind of just bend my wrist. And actually, watching this, it reminded me of when I started arm wrestling. Well, well, I wouldn't say I'm still starting out arm wrestling. It's been like more than 4 years, but I'm still on that journey. But especially when I was a very like new beginner, I really wanted to top roll, and I sort of feel like I recognize that like this is like better like technique, and it's this is like the most efficient position, I guess. But I fucking couldn't at all, and people would just wrist curl me like all the time, and I would always like I would. So the thing is, like I had like my wrist was always decent, and my arm was okay, like, and especially like when I would just get on my like elbow lock, even like as weak as it was, I feel like that's just a strength that like everyone has at like at like a pretty high baseline, and I feel like I was always able to grind like that. But basically, like all the time, I would be arm wrestling people, and like even guys that I should be able to beat, like complete beginners. As soon as I tried that like total posting lane, I would just get wrist curled and lose, and it was just so incredibly frustrating. And it wasn't even like I was so close to cracking the wrist for like maybe like a year and a half. I just felt like even the weakest beginner just was like an insurmountable wall. I couldn't even tell how close I was to keeping the wrist flat. And so it really made me feel strongly about the relation between technique and strength. Is like technique is all downstream from your strengths, and like because Warren asked me at the practice, Warren hosts the practices, and he was like, "Are you a top roller?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so," but it just kind of, I mean, it's a perfectly normal question, but it made me think about this, and I think at this point I can say like I'm a top roller, and it would be mostly correct, but I just feel like, can you really call yourself a top roller even if you can't top roll? Like, if more like most of your matches end in a hook, which most matches end in a hook, can you even call yourself a top roller? Like, if 75% of your matches are inside, you know what I mean? So the idea that you really have some kind of agency in being a top roller is, I feel like, uh, I don't know. I think that's a little bit wrong too, because I don't know, most matches, like for someone to take another person's wrist, especially lighter weights, it like almost never happens. I don't know. It's just hard. It's really hard, and um, I think you need to be really, really good at top rolling to call yourself a top roller, almost. Like, cause like yeah, if 75% of your matches end up with you curled in, it's like even if you try to top roll, I feel like you can't even call yourself a top roller really. Um, and you can lose in a position that looks like a top roll, but generally, like I think it's always better to dive in. Um, like to get like a Mindogus like stop where you're all leaning over, and it's hard, I think. So usually like before losing, the best choice is to dive in with the person anyway. So that's how all matches end in the hook. Um, but here I'm pulling with James, and he's super strong. I pulled him for the first time. But this idea about technique being downstream from strength is also why like your journey of technical improvement is like necessarily like a lifelong one as well because your techniques not because there's just so much like fixed knowledge that you can learn, which for sure there's so much of it, and it'll take you years, but I think like you can get the gist of it um eventually, but really like what it is like you have to adapt to the strengths that you currently have in that moment. Theoretically, there is like a best possible thing you can do given the tools that you have, and your strengths always is constantly evolving. So your best move from a year ago is not your best move right now anymore. So it's like that's how I like to think that I try to arm wrestle is just kind of squeeze out the best thing I can do with the strengths that I have. So I don't know if that's necessarily like, I don't know. I don't think I'm good enough at top rolling, but I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about technique. Really, it's not just like doing a motion with a certain form, like very consistently. It just kind of like whatever you can possibly do with the strengths that you have really is the best technique. So whatever gets you to win is the best technique, and making it look pretty is great, but I feel like oftentimes it's just like a sign of being strong, and it's not really an expression of your ability to squeeze out everything you have um, in terms of how your strengths can influence you winning the match. But anyways, that's that. And then I had another thought about when I was pulling James. I couldn't do anything, so I kept trying to like push him off the back of the pad because I got like annoyed at myself getting stonewalled. But I actually do think though that that should be allowed because I don't know. I've always felt that it was weird how like because I agree. For example, intentional slip. I just think in a lot of these sports like there's always this gray area of like trying to like determine the person's intent and you have to like try to mind read them and like it's totally possible. I feel like the vast majority of, for example, intentional slips or elbow pushing someone off the pad is like you can kind of tell that they're doing it on purpose. But I always fuck with the idea that like you can like because you can't ever tell for 100% sure, like lean towards the side of like freedom. And I think so. I love that intentional slip roll because it's like I've always thought like yeah. So you're telling me that um like I have to lose on purpose. Like I have an option not to lose and I have to choose to lose. Like you know what I mean. So like I was like oh that's so like restricting on expressing everything I like possibly can on the table. And I feel like a lot of people agree with me about the intentional slip, and the same thing about the King's move. I always thought the King's move was cool. I feel like now I sort of believe that the totally straight arm King's move is not really beneficial for the sport, but I agree with the perspective that it's not unbeatable and it's like I get the sentiment that like it's kind of cool and it expands the sort of boundaries and like of the sport and like what you can do. I just think that like it allows like I have a couple of reasons why I don't like it, but anyways, a bunch of people are arguing with me about why the totally straight arm, totally hanging on the table should be allowed, they don't. But then they don't agree with me about the shoulder, like not the shoulder, the elbow shove. Like I'm like, why? Like I mean that for sure is not consistent. Um, because you really, because you're making a what's the word? You're trading something like so for you. You're gaining an advantage in your move by floating your elbow, right? So and you give up like for example, if in order to generate more like posting strength, you're giving up that connection to the pad. And I just think that like why can't the other person take advantage of that? So it's like if you don't want to get shoved off the pad, then you know, then you don't get to have all that back pressure by floating your elbow off the pad slightly. Um, so I think it's totally fair, honestly. And if you do it slow, it's like already allowed. Like a lot of people talk about how like the way Jerry presses it, it shoves you off the pad because it's mostly forward, and that's considered technique. But if you do it fast, you know, it's not okay because it's cheap. But really, I think it's kind of cool because I've never been really shoved off the pad, but I feel like I'd be able to adjust to it, and I can like you can almost time that to get a better position yourself also. Because usually I'm standing pretty straight up, like, and that's the other thing is that like when you're doing that totally under the table straight arm kings move, that's an example where you like totally give up any traction with the pad in order to gain that like huge leverage. So you're gaining a big advantage by giving like totally not trying to keep your elbow on the pad at all. So I just think that you should be able to punish that, and I think that's totally fair. And it completely also solves the problem of a king's move that is like looks ugly or is under the table because it's impossible. Like you just cannot do it while having enough elbow pressure on the pad. That's the trade-off you make when you choose to do that. So I think it's like kind of a perfect solution to if you just allow both, they would just counteract it and you would never be able to do that anymore. Um, so I just think it should be allowed as a technique. I think it's kind of cool. Um, and you shouldn't just be able to like lean and drag as much as you want without also like with like no downsides where you know clearly like pressing is allowed, but then you can't do it too quick. But anyways, those are just sort of my thoughts. Pretty tired, so hopefully this wasn't too rough to listen to. But that's all. Thanks for watching.